What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Blockchain Warehouse podcast. My name is Milan, and I have with me two absolutely incredible guests who are some of the most influential people in the mortgage industry. You're going to love this. The first and foremost, we have Corey Schwartz, the CEO of Loanatik. And secondly, we have CEO of Block66, Joe Markham. Welcome to the show, guys.
It's great to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So, Corey, for anybody who's unfamiliar with what you guys are doing at Loanatik, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background and potentially just some more information on?
Sure. My background is computer science, a degree in computer science, another in economics. Built up a large software company, both publishing and distribution, sold it to two venture firms, retired, and then got into mortgages over 20 years ago.
Wow.
Primarily as a private lender. I had given somebody $25,000. They paid it back with interest, and I went, wow, that's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Within a number of years, I was one of Arizona's largest private lenders. Shut the company down in 2010 because of Dodd-Frank and regulation. Bought up piles and piles of real estate, both residential and commercial, and then sold all of that in 2014 to start Loanatik. And our mission at Loanatik is to become one of the easiest, simplest ways of getting a mortgage.
Perfect. That's incredible. And Joe, as the CEO of Block66, a technology that's disrupting the mortgage industry, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So my background is not as impressive as Corey's. I haven't bought and sold multiple properties or invested in tons in the mortgage side, but I'm actually a broker myself, a mortgage broker.
Amazing.
I've been so for just over now. Kind of a, I don't know, I joke I'm a closet geek, but then someone just said, you're not a closet geek, you're just actually a geek. But I love tech and different things like that. So anyone who's in the broker community or has helped facilitate mortgages for clients on any level, whether it's a new home buyer or someone like Corey who's maybe gone through the process a bunch of times as an investor. It's just kind of a tedious process. I see it at the forefront of just trying to structure these loans and put my clients in the best possible situation. So for the last 3.5 years or so, I've kind of just have this big thick scratch pad on. Originally, it started off as just a new loan origination platform. And then just with the buzz of blockchain, it kind of piques everyone's interest, and saw there was a fit in terms of the transparency side and the efficiencies and things, all the good stuff there. So 66 was informed. So for the last 1.5 years or so, we've been kind of nose to the pavement working on Block66.
Okay, amazing. And Corey, as somebody who's been in the mortgage industry for over 20 years, what is your what has your experience been over, the last 20 years in terms of seeing potential patterns, seeing how there's been potential disruptors in the past? I mean, you guys are an innovative platform, and, you've significantly reduced the time it takes to get a loan in the industry. What impact do you think that Block66 or blockchain as a technology will have on the mortgage industry and the real estate industry over the next sort of 3 to 5 years?
It's really quite difficult to tell where it's going to go. I think there's a misunderstanding of the technology in the general population. Similar kinds of technologies have existed for a long period of time, right? We're accomplishing the same stuff with or without blockchain.
Yeah. And
there are issues that come up with blockchain, like who's going to manage it? Where's all this data going to reside? Because it becomes overwhelming for even dozens or hundreds or thousands of computers and participants to maintain petabytes of information. Mm-hmm. There's also all kinds of issues with the way blockchain is set up initially, and permissions. So for example, let's say your property is stored, ownership of your property is represented on the blockchain. and you happen to lose your key, does that mean you can't access or sell your property any longer?
Right.
And then you get into the whole key management problem. What about transfer issues? Like if the property owner and key holder doesn't agree to the transfer of a property, does that mean the transfer can't happen? Well, how do you deal with that in a foreclosure? How do you deal with that in eminent domain? There's a myriad of issues that blockchain hasn't addressed yet. They may in the future. I hope they do in the future.
Yeah.
The technology is awesome. The application and the back parts to it are questionable at this moment, at least in my mind.
Yeah, amazing. And on that topic, Corey, how would you say blockchain as a technology needs to change to tackle the myriad of issues that you foresee at this given moment in time?
Obviously, the key holder and the administration of those keys has to become more sophisticated.
Got it.
I think that's one of the number one issues with blockchain right now.
Okay.
It doesn't accurately represent the real world in real property as I see it right now.
Amazing. And over to you, Joe, your experience with sort of blockchain and the mortgage industry and your sort of thoughts on how it could potentially help with the amount of data, with the amount of transparency, with the amount of reliability. Is the technology there sufficient to kind of service the mortgage industry? And how would you sort of overcome some of the obstacles that Corey has talked about?
Yeah, I mean, it's not wrong. And I'm the first, I've done a handful of interviews now, various podcasts and things. And maybe I'm the most honest CEO in this space in terms of blockchain, where it's very early days, and you and I have spoke, off mic, off camera here, where, and that's just what it is, but we were trying to position ourselves, be at the forefront, work with people, by the sounds of it, I've never talked to Corey before, but people with his background and his computer engineering, like those are the type of people we want to work with. One of our first advisors we brought on was Maurice Hurley, out of Brown University, big computer science background and history, where I see a great opportunity, and there are some weaknesses in the technology and the platforms that maybe exist now, or some of these other real estate plays that you see.
Yeah.
We're just we want to be the first, and maybe pull us along, but we do see potential here. And it's just working with the right people, bringing the right people in, and helping to try and move this technology forward within the space.
Yeah, amazing. And Joe, I'm sure you agree, with every sort of obstacle comes an opportunity. You have an incredible board of advisors, including people like Pippa Moretti, who's also been one of the first people to buy real estate with Bitcoin. I mean, do you see not only your advisors, but do you see like the actual coins and actual blockchain technology becoming the norm? And do you see it going for mass adoption? And because there's always a challenge, right? Like if it goes for mass adoption really quickly, then as Corey quite rightly pointed out, there's a number of loopholes that won't necessarily get filled. And I think that's what's happened to date. Like, the cryptocurrencies just went skyrocketed in their price. It caused a number of issues, and therefore the market perception for many months after was this kind of negative connotation to the crypto world, to blockchain, what it's potentially doing. So what's your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's happening. There's things being bought and sold with Bitcoin and ETH and stuff every day. And people are buying homes, people are buying cars, people are, I spoke to someone yesterday, and they, during the Haiti weather impact they had a few years ago, they were transferring, gallons of water and water storage facilities. And the easiest way to facilitate that transaction quickly was by the transfer of Bitcoin. So, it is happening.
Yeah.
And again, it's just bringing in the right people and bringing in the right, look what Vermont just did, right? They passed the bill where they're trying to put their entire title property registration on chain. Wyoming's doing some crazy things. California, Nevada, the entire country of Sweden is trying to bring their title registry on chain. all these, the massive financial institutions, whether you agree with or don't agree with, that whole blockchain theory, whatever your deep down roots are, they're doing transfers all the time. So we're just trying to be, a piece in that cog, and again, trying to position ourselves where we are the mortgage company that's trying to help facilitate it.
Sure.
So yeah, we do see a future for sure.
Sure. Corey, one of the things that I wanted to kind of get your opinion on is that there is no doubt that blockchain as a technology can have its advantages. Yes, there are many loopholes, but what do you think needs to change? Who are the people that need to kind of come out and say, yes, it can be used for mass adoption? What sort of challenges do market leaders and industry leaders need to potentially see being overcome and solutions for, in order to kind of, in order for this to become the norm? Because I get the kind of feeling at the moment there's a lot of disruptors out there, but the people at the top, the people who are sort of veterans in this industry, they're quite rightly, they're pointing out many flaws. So what do the disruptors really need to kind of focus on at this given moment in time to iron out those creases and hopefully, overcome those misnomers?
I don't think it's going to happen en masse.
Yeah.
I think what you're going to see is pockets.
Okay.
So if you're talking about, there have to be hundreds, if not thousands, of applications of blockchain technology to the real estate market.
Right.
So one of the obvious places is title.
Okay.
But without the participation of government, you're not going to have blockchain title.
Right.
You've got to involve them.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're just creating a system that's outside of the system.
Right.
And most of the government officials that I've spoken with are very much in favor of blockchain technology or the exploration of it.
Amazing.
And they're willing to change and modify the laws to adapt to what's coming. Some of the issues that blockchain, again, going back to title, because that's just one very addressable portion of the real estate industry, is the ownership of the existing data. So you've got millions and millions of pieces of parcel data. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially owned by only a handful of people. So you either have to duplicate all that research and background in order to bring it into blockchain, or purchase it from them, or they purchase you.
Right.
Right? There's only a handful of ways that that's going to get addressed. So someone that owns a title plant, like First American Title, that owns all of the research, because the research doesn't go away. You can't simply say XYZ person owns this parcel. You have to prove it all the way back to the deed of origin from the United States to the state, and then each of the subdivisions going forward. So either you get to do all that research over again, mm-hmm. or you have to purchase it.
Yeah.
So there's massive, massive problems, even in something as simple as title.
Yeah.
One of the easier paths that I could see is the trading of fractional interests and notes. So the mortgage itself being fractionalized and assigned to multiple investors. That would certainly be a good application of blockchain technologies. One of the issues I see there is privacy. If we open up all this data to the investor market, what have we done to prevent the predators in the investor market from identifying a single white woman who's living alone in a house that's under financial stress with kids, and you know, you don't want all of the information available.
Yeah.
So there's piles of applications. I think the market in whole has been slow to adopt, and that creates the opportunity for people like Joe and myself.
Yeah.
You know,
Completely.
but there's still piles of work to do.
No, completely. And Joe, that's a really interesting point that Corey said. Not only is there issues with privacy, but there's issues with who owns the data. Is it the government? Is it people that are, you know, very small handful of people? And if it is, could that potentially pose vulnerabilities? Now, mass adoption is probably something that's not going to happen because, as Corey quite rightly said, there's too many holes to fill at this given moment in time. But I know that you were particularly focused on going slow and filling small loopholes. Why don't you talk about a little bit more about what you had planned over the next sort of 18 months and how that could potentially transition into something bigger?
Yeah, Corey actually set us up for a nice little segue there about the fractional ownership and things like
Amazing.
that. So second, you know, we're running in 2 phases. So one is you know, arguably we're trying to build the world's best loan origination platform that's not really on chain. But then we're running side by side in our phase 2 is setting ourselves up once adoption takes place. And again, I've said before, I want to work with regulators. I want to meet with government officials. I want to meet with industry leaders, people, technology people like Corey, and people who have like a real voice in the say in the entire real estate transaction. There's so many pieces that go into it that the average home buyer just doesn't understand. They just see a for sale sign, the house looks good, we want it. And then they don't know all the real pieces that go in behind the scenes. So, but our secondary thing is just that is we do see the value in fractional ownership. You know, being able to, I have a background in theft and fraud as well. So everything that happened in 2008, it gets talked ad nauseum. I'm not going to, with the buying and selling and trading of bundled mortgages and such, there's a huge benefit to blockchain there, which is what our BNet token will actually do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so in the next 18 months, we hope to fund our first mortgage, probably a small mortgage, similar to the one Corey said his first one was, maybe a $25,000, $50,000 private mortgage on chain. Yeah. And then, you know, build out from there, build out our use case further, you know, continue to meet with people and people of high influence in governments and such, especially in North America. Because if we wanted to take a real crack at this is where we got to be. Yeah. And then also my dev team's over in UK. So working with their government over there as well. So that's the plan. And we hope to get there. So.
Amazing. And Corey, what are your thoughts on how potentially the mortgage industry across the US differs from that of Canada and the UK? Is there similarities in the fundamental kind of loopholes that blockchain will need to be filled? Or are there any countries in particular where the adoption of blockchain would probably be a lot more easier than, for example, the United States?
It's extremely hard to address that question.
Sure.
Just in the U.S., the laws vary state by state.
Ah, okay.
So,
like 50 different jurisdictions, right? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And every one of them is different.
Wow.
I have done business in Brazil.
Yeah.
And they're a train wreck. They have no concept of title other than, you know, this guy sitting in the Amazon owns the land from this stake to that stake, and the stakes move every so often. You know, it's as large as the world is. That's how many different laws and variations by province, by city. It's almost impossible. You have to address each one independently.
Right.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And Joe, from your experience, obviously, you know, it's a Canadian company. It's actually originated from Canada. What's the kind of reception been over there?
Yeah, it's kind of like everywhere. I mean, there's I just saw news yesterday that there was supposed to be big regulatory news that was supposed to come out by the end of this month, and it's now being pushed at the same time, 2019. Yeah. Which again, with the people that are big in this space, is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. They didn't even give it a hard stop or a big green light, but they're looking at it. Governments are looking at it. Large financial institutions are looking at it. The military is looking at it. People are looking at it and trying to see where there's a fit. Where does it all end up in 20, 25 years? To Corey's point, maybe there's only small parcels of it that are being implemented and utilized in this space. We're kind of a hybrid. Like we're leveraging APIs as well. We're doing various things where needed. So, but yeah, it's going up here in Canada. Do we look at countries like Malta and Cayman's trying to do some things, and the Philippines that are more friendly and try to push our model there? Absolutely. But we're definitely trying to. We know that if we can make it work in the U.S., Canada, UK, Australia, places like that, then everywhere else shouldn't be an issue.
For sure. And Corey, one of the things that I wanted you to touch on is, if you were in this space, as you quite rightly said, it has to kind of stem from the government. They have to be involved with it in order for this to be eventually adopted on a mass level. Would your kind of go-to-market plan be get the government involved pretty much off the bat and approach them and get their thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think that's by far the best way to do it. I think if you look at Lending Club, when they started, one of the earlier things they did is they went down and sat down with SEC and said, hey, this is our plan. This is what we're going to accomplish, and worked with them to make sure that what they were doing was within the SEC's jurisdiction. It was within the SEC's jurisdiction and had their blessing. Had they not done that, I think they would have gotten shut down fairly quickly.
Right. Amazing. That's really interesting. And Joe, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think one of the first interviews I ever did was, it's kind of a weird space, right? Like you get these true crypto enthusiasts. It's deregulation. They don't want to work with government and all this stuff. And it's just, I get it. That's the space. But at the same time, you just got to look at it. It is what it is. The real estate transaction is governed in so many different ways. And to Corey's point, it could be municipality or state or provincial, or you can't all of a sudden just say, hey, we're ABC blockchain realty company and we're going to buy and sell houses and think it's going to work, because it's not. We work with a law firm now out of Manhattan. We're working with another lawyer out of Wyoming. We're continuing to look at legal advice and trying to get introduced to the right people in the regulatory space, because it's a governed space. So again, my job within the company is to make those connections, to meet those individuals, and try and push this along.
I think that's a really interesting point, because as you quite rightly said, Joe, there seems to be quite a few people in this market. The crypto space, there are obviously the people who are more rebels. They want to keep government out of everything. They in essence don't really care about, so many of them don't even care about what tokens they're buying. They just want to get rich, many of them. And because of the price volatility, some of them do, and there is obviously a lot of uncertainty. But eventually it comes down to, I suppose, Corey's point. Well, it's great to have the technology, but there needs to be an actual tangible use case for this, right? Like there needs to be something in which this can be used, and you can't have something sort of decentralized and combine it with a regulated market without actually involving the government. So to your point, Corey, I think, you're absolutely bang on there. A lot of people just have this kind of opinion of the crypto world and want to get rich quick and just want to buy tokens irrespective of what it is. So many tokens have raised millions, hundreds of millions of pounds without an actual use case for their technology. But fundamentally, you can't escape realism, and there needs to be loopholes that need to be filled.
Well said.
Cool, guys. That's it from me. Corey, is there any final thoughts you wanted to share? Any kind of last questions or anything?
No, I'm very interested to see, how Block66 evolves over the next years. We'll be watching closely.
Any final comments from you?
No, Corey, it's great to meet you online here. I'd love to chat down the road or in the near future for sure.
Likewise.
But yeah, I appreciate it, Milan. Speaking of token, we did just launch our token sale last week. So if anyone's interested in that or checking out our white paper, it's pretty thorough. but yeah, just block66.io, links to our white paper, social channels, and things like that. And I'm online as well. So if anyone has direct questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer. So I appreciate it.
Cool. Perfect. Joe, Corey, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, guys, for jumping on the podcast, and I'll speak to you guys soon.
Likewise. Thanks so
Cheers.
much, Milan.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.